And the longest you've been underwater, there's a correlative between when you're scuba diving, between how shallow you are and how long your air lasts. The deeper you go, you're going to use air faster. So when you are underwater and you're shallow, 10, 15 feet, and you're underwater for 50 minutes or an hour, that's pretty common. But that same tank might only last you 20 minutes or 15 minutes if you're at 90 feet, 100 feet. And there's charts, of course, and things that we're supposed to memorize, which I probably should, that let you know, of course, exactly at what depth, how long you have. But you all have diving computers, and diving computers tell you that too. So
Has there been a time like you're diving and you like turn around to something not expect maybe a big ass octopus or shark like oh shit, like where did this come from, right?
well, I haven't had an octopus or a shark, but I did have a time when I was underwater and my light. I was at about 100 feet with a friend. We were swimming in a an old. It was a what do you call it? Not a mine. It was a spring, a natural spring down in Florida that went straight down basically, and then had a slight curve to it. And we were down around 100 feet, and there's no light down there, so you've got a light that you're carrying, and that light that we were carrying, or the light that I was carrying, went out. My light went out. So had it not been for having a backup light and my friend having a light, I would have been in pitch darkness. So there was a split second where I was like, "Oh my gosh, now what?" But again, that's the calm moment, right? Signal to your buddy. My light went out. Okay, no problem. Let's slowly start to ascend, and then you've got this. You pick up problems and you run with them and you make them not problems, basically.
Do people ever lose like a sense of direction? Do they forget like that up there is the air, down here is water?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
especially in a panic situation. We learn that in rescue diving. That people, if you get certified as a rescue diver, you start to learn that people lose their sense of orientation. Certainly, where land is, right? Because sure, my dive computer is telling me, and my compass is telling me what direction is what. I know that the Space Needle's there. That means that's generally north or whatever compared to where I am now. Well, try to think that rationally if something's going wrong with your breathing apparatus underwater. Try to think that rationally if all of a sudden, like you said, a giant octopus startles you or a shark or something. All of a sudden you're like, wait, whoa, 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 you're freaking out. You don't know where you are. There's a lot of disorientation that can happen, especially in low visibility, right? So we have to be able to, in situations where we're in low vis, constantly be thinking, okay, what direction am I? What's the way back to shore? How deep am I? You're constantly checking those things so that, and I keep using you as an example, like you're the one who's going to have the nightmare underwater. But let's say Jason freaks out. It's okay. We are 10 feet away from shore. You don't realize that we're 4 feet of underwater. You know what I'm saying? And you can keep people calm that way as you ascend. Even if you're 40 feet underwater and 100 feet from shore, as long as you've got that navigation and orientation, you're in good shape.
You have like a bucket list destination to do a scuba dive at?
I have two books at home. One is called 50 Dives to Do Before You Die, and the other is called 111 Dives to Do Before You Die, or something like that. So yeah, every single place in those books, basically. I have a good friend in Southern California, and he and I um, are always talking about cool dive spots. I'd love to dive the Maldives. I would love to dive some of the periphery of Australia is supposed to be absolutely brilliant. Galapagos Island is supposed to be fantastic. There's places throughout Indonesia which are very, very hard and very expensive and time consuming to get to, which I'd love to dive as well. Yeah, in the next couple of years, I'll do some cool dive spots. My friend and I have talked about doing Iceland as well, which sounds like very warm. But yeah, we'll see.
So back in the day, maybe you still do it now, you did a lot of movies, either directing or involved with
Yeah,
movies.
producing. Yeah,
Producing
producing.
movies.
Yeah.
Can you talk about whether it's like independent movies that got released? Can
Yeah,
you talk about that?
absolutely. Yeah, it was never studio pieces when I was producing documentaries, and I still have my hand in some projects that are in process. But when I was actively doing that kind of work, I was working on a couple different things. One was a documentary called Flight from Death, which is a documentary about fear of death on a subconscious level and how that impacts our behavior. So the documentary Flight from Death did quite well at film festivals. It won Best Documentary at a number of festivals around the world, actually, and saw DVD at the time, DVD release in Australia, DVD release in the United States, and that was made by a company called Transcendental Media from California, directed by a guy named Patrick Shen, and he and I wrote it and produced it, and he directed. And it was a pretty awesome experience. And there were other documentaries that we did well at the time, and it was fun to tell stories in a different way. I'm often telling stories with my voice vocally in front of audiences in situations like this. But I found that telling a story through video was challenging in a new way and actually a lot of fun. You're putting together so many different components to tell the story. It's not just here's Greg, here's my words, let's go, but rather how are we portraying this? In the same way that inflection adds meaning, how are we shooting this? In the same way that pausing can add intensity, right? To
People don't realize how powerful pause can be, right?
it's amazingly powerful. If I suddenly stop talking and we weren't talking about pauses, and that pause went on for a minute, it would be unbearable. Like
You know, right?
people wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They think something went wrong with the microphone, something went wrong with Greg, something went wrong with Jason, the power's out in Seattle. Your mind goes a million different directions.
Yeah.